I'm Andilly.
And I am Michael Sheehan. We are in the town square of Oudenaarde where we just saw the finish of the Tour of Flanders. It started at around 10:30 this morning, and we are surrounded by people who have pretty much been drinking since then, because in Belgium, today was the Super Bowl of the country.
What a day it was. The story is really about the Ode Quaremont today, where both the men's and women's races were played out. Let's get into the women's race.
Yeah, it started off as many long road races do. There was a large breakaway up the road that the main race contenders were not particularly concerned about. Boels Dolman and Mitchelton Scott did a wonderful job keeping things in check. And yeah, it really played out like that up and over the Muir and until the last 60 or so K.
Yeah, shout out to Mitchelton Scott's Sarah Roy and Boels Dolman's Christine Madras. Incredible rides on the front of this field today. We thought this race was going to play out on the Canaryberg, and we saw full out lead out trains coming into the base of this climb at 50 kilometers to go.
Yeah, and it was then that Canyon SRAM really took over from Boels Dolman and Mitchelton Scott. This team did not want to be dictated to by the bigger powerhouse squads, and they raced an incredibly aggressive race. We saw a stinging attack up the Canaryberg, which did not quite work out, but then it was the trade-off from Lisa Klein and Cassia Nui-Adoma, which really started to create separations in the field.
There was a big group that came into the bottom of the Ode Quaremont together, and it was a racer we've been talking about all week, Marta Bastianelli, the Italian, who set out, and not only her Virtue team, we will get to that, but she set out with a blistering attack, created a separation. Marianne Vos was the main rider that was able to go with her, and then Vos flatted heartbreakingly in between the Ode Quaremont and the Paterberg. Bastianelli, Nui-Adoma, and Van Vleuten came to the Paterberg together along with Cecilia Uttrup Ludwig.
Yeah, and let's just rewind for a second to the Ode Quaremont, because this is a climb that we are going to be talking about a lot today. Ian and I, we have done a video that is up on our site about the finale of the Tour of Flanders. Give it a look if you don't really know the Ode Quaremont, but it was Marta Bastianelli and Team Virtue that took it up on this really long, brutal, extremely bumpy cobbled climb. And from the Paterberg, this was really Annemiek van Vleuten's last place to make a difference in the race, being the strongest climber of the bunch. Annemiek van Vleuten did manage to distance Cassia Nui-Adoma, but it was Cecilia Uttrup Ludwig, Van Vleuten, and Marta Bastianelli who were going to ride to the finish together.
Yeah, and I think it was also the chasing group behind that played a key role in this race. We had Chantal Black and Nui-Adoma behind, along with Ellen Van Dijk, a full-on chase, almost like a team pursuit to the finish line in Oudenaarde. And the odds were all on Marta Bastianelli, but also you can't count out Van Vleuten. I mean, this is one of the, or not the best riders in the world. Marta Bastianelli did end up taking the sprint in the finish, but let's talk about Van Vleuten's sprint, because she took it up with 500 meters to go.
It was so hard to see. I think that part of the equation is that she did not have a lot of confidence in her sprint, especially against the likes of Marta Bastianelli, who is properly quick. Van Vleuten went with like 500 meters to go though, and she put in a massive gap. She probably really underestimated how much of a kick she was going to have, because it took Bastianelli the better part of 300 meters to get on terms with her. Bastianelli did swarm her, take the win, but I think that the other equation, part of this equation for Van Vleuten's attack, is she had a lot of pressure from the chasing group behind.
Yeah, she was obviously concerned that they were going to catch. That was in her head. And it's one of those things, to win a monument like Flanders, you have to be prepared to lose. Marta Bastianelli, definitely cool as ice. Van Vleuten had an incredible kick, and had she waited till 200, 150 meters, I think she might have won this race. She gapped out Bastianelli in the sprint, but Bastianelli came around her and won a big race. What's your takeaway? I mean, for me, it's this Virtue team and how well they've been riding.
Yeah, Sofia Bertizzolo was a really, really instrumental player in the finale. She was in the chasing group, chasing these three leaders. She is, of course, on Virtue and Bastianelli's teammate, so she offered absolutely zero help to Chantal Black and Cassia Nui-Adoma in the chase, and she was fresh as a daisy to take the sprint for 4th place. That is a 1st and 4th place in Tour of Flanders. That is a huge result for Team Virtue over the likes of Boels Dolman and Mitchelton Scott, and that really shows what Ian and I were talking about in our preview show, is just the parity in the women's professional cycling field.
Yeah, again, we talk a lot about Boels Dolman being the strongest women's team in the world. Again, they've yet to win a World Tour race this year. And, you know, a lot of exciting young riders coming up in the sport. Nui-Adoma, Uttrup Ludwig, and Sophia from Virtue, only 21 years old. So incredible ride. Go watch it on demand on FloBikes if you haven't seen it yet. And let's get into the men's race.
Let's get to it. What a race it was. We saw aggressive racing from the start. It was mostly a pro-continental breakaway that got away, and things opened up more or less on the Muir. That is where we saw the pace shift. The heads of state came to the front, and splits started to happen.
Yeah, I do want to back up. There was a heartbreaking moment rather early in the race as positioning was ramping up for the Bergs. Nikki Terpstra, the defending champion, hit the deck, and it was a super scary moment, just laying motionless in the road. Luckily, he did begin to move. It looked like he's going to be okay. We're eagerly waiting checkups on how he's doing. But approaching the Muir, it was Matthew Vanderpool's Corrine Circus team, the unheralded pro-continental team, that started out the action with Dries de Brandt launching an attack into the base of the Muir, and then split started the form, and it was game on.
Yeah, we saw Casper Asgreen leading the Quick-Step team up the Muir, and from this point on, it was seriously showtime. Their splits opened up, the peloton condensed back together, but can we just talk about the ride that Casper Asgreen had today real fast?
Well, we don't want to give away where he finished, but this is a rider on Deceuninck Quick-Step who had just a role of being a helper, of covering the early breaks, helping to pull back the brake, and he ended up being one of the major players in the finale. Let's get to the Quermont, where we expected the race to really open up on the second time around, and it did, sure enough, but we also had some more drama with Matthew Vanderpool hitting some road furniture and taking a nasty spill.
Yeah, this is really one of the stories of the Tour of Flanders. We saw a lot of really hard crashes today. We mentioned Nikki Terpstra earlier. In the women's race, Corrine Rivera, a former winner of Tour of Flanders, had to be taken to the hospital. She is okay with no fractures. And Vanderpool, going into the Quermont, this is one of the known places of the race where there is traffic furniture. It is incredibly dangerous, incredibly hairy. Only Matthew Vanderpool could save that and then teleport back into the middle of the field within 20 minutes.
Yeah, we saw Vanderpool laying on the ground, clutching his arm. He got back on his bike, was going through the field on the Quermont. By the top of the Paterberg, he was only seconds off the back of the lead group, ended up bridging back to the lead group on the Koppenberg, and we just saw splits coming back and forth. Incredibly exciting racing. Any move could have been the winner, but a group of 20 riders all came together at the base of the Quermont for the final time, setting up an incredible finale.
Yeah, and as we talked about in the women's race, Quermont is the deciding climb of the day, and it was really Italians who decided the race on the Quermont.
Yeah, Alberto Bettiol, this is a rider that we've been talking about since the beginning of this season. He set out with an incredible attack, just pure intuition, confidence, and I would say maybe no one went with him, no one thought to go with him, but he was also obviously the fastest and strongest rider in that group. By the time he got to the top of the Quermont and was on the smooth tarmac heading towards the Paterberg, he had a huge gap. It was hovering around 20 seconds, and it was clear he was not coming back, charged over the Paterberg. By the time he got to the finish line, he had almost a minute.
Yeah, it was really tenuous. I was not convinced, actually, going up the Paterberg, that he was going to be able to hold off the chasing group. We saw Greg Van Avermaet in a very familiar looking move. I'm pretty sure we've seen this in the last week of Van Avermaet leading the field up the Paterberg at a very fast pace. He was bringing it back, and then of all people, Matthew Vanderpool, who since that crash somehow recovered and was just attentive at the front of the race ever since then. He attacked over the top of the Paterberg, but at this point it was such a select group of pre-race favorites that nobody could seem to really organize and commit to cooperating with one another.
Yeah, and now let's get into Casper Asgreen rides, because this is a guy who was not only working at the start of the race, he was also in an early move with Sepp Van Mark, comes back and then attacks in the final 2 kilometers, gets out in front of the field and finishes second. I mean, this is a helper, a domestique, someone very low on the rung at De Koenig Quickstep, getting on the podium at the Ronde, and it just really speaks to the incredible strength, the talent on this team, and also just the ability for these riders to ride for themselves if they're in a situation to do so.
No, Casper Asgreen's ride today, that man was on a day. I have maybe never seen anything like it. He was putting himself in the wind with 210 kilometers to go, keeping breakaway attempts in check. He led the charge for the peloton up the Muir. He was leading it when the peloton split, and he was just there. He was just reliably there the entire day. I've never seen that.
Yeah, incredible ride by him, and another incredible ride by Alexander Kristoff to win the field sprint and be on the podium. So a podium at Flanders, a win at Ghent-Wevelgem. It's so great to see Alexander Kristoff back and just another factor in these races. We've been talking to him all week. He's been friendly, in a good mood, with great quotes. And yeah, I think I asked him what it was that is helping lead to his success this year, and I think it is the strengthening of his team. You know, he was talking about having Gaviria alongside him is relieving the pressure, allowing him to be more opportunistic in these races, and it's showing. I mean, he is on incredible form. But let's get into my big takeaway, Mathieu Vanderpool. Man, I don't even have words for this guy.
Incredible. He finished 4th today despite all of his troubles. The ride that he did, I don't think that anybody else would really be capable of it. It is, you know, maybe a story of what could have been had he not had the crash, had he not had to burn so much energy to chase back into the group. But I'm really not too worried about that, because the 4th place for him today shows me that we are going to see so many wins of his to come.
Yeah, we talked to him after the race. Go to the site and check out that interview. He said that Flanders is definitely a race he wants to come back and raise his arms as he crosses the line, as he's done in so many other races. And you know, he's somebody also who has said that road racing didn't really appeal to him, that his big goal was the 2020 Olympics on the mountain bike, and that road racing was boring. But I think after today, he's seeing obviously the excitement in road racing, the crowds cheering for him on the Kwaremont as he was coming back into the group. Just phenomenal. I know we're supposed to put words to the actual ride he had, but there are no words. And I think another note about this race that it's hard to describe is the success of EF and what has led to their just incredible performance here, Alberto Bettiol.
Yeah, EF, a few years ago, they were a team that really just had one token classics rider, that is, of course, Sepp Van Mark, and he was really left to fend for himself in the later stages of any given classic. They have since then built such a well-rounded and underrated classics program, and the support that Alberto Bettiol had in the closing kilometers was pretty magical. First and foremost was Sepp Van Mark, who suffered a really bad crash earlier in the week. He knew that today was not going to be his day, but he fell on his sword for his teammate. The teamwork that came out of that squad today to produce that victory was second to none.
I mean, Sebastian Langeveld behind in the lead group, following moves for Bettiol. Another strong ride by him. And I think we can't forget that this was a team that was on the verge of collapse just a year ago, a year and a half ago. Now they have a monument. It just speaks to the support of EF behind this team. The riders feel taken care of. They're confident, and it's showing on the road. They're riding aggressively, riding as a team, and yeah, just support. I was in the bus area. It was just an incredible scene.
Yeah, Alberto Bettiol in the press conference after the race explained his victory salute, saying that he felt that he was a little bit underserved in his at-home media, and he was basically saying, keep your eyes on me. You need to start paying attention to what I'm doing. I think that can also be interpreted as keep your eyes on EF, because that is a brand new team, and the way they're racing, we're going to see a lot more moments like we saw today at Flanders.
Yeah, and Benio gave me some great quotes in the podium area afterwards, talking about how he, threw away his heart during his attack on the Quermont and just, raced purely on intuition and just laid it all out there. So, yeah, obviously someone to watch in the future, and yeah, this team is going to be back at Roubaix, so it'll be exciting to see them there. But first off, go to FloBikes, watch the race on demand, and we will see you again. We'll be in Italy for the Giro d'Italia.
Yeah, if you can't tell, we were very excited about today's race. Do go check it out, and we will be back with more bike racing action on FloBikes.
See you then.